These are real nature facts that sound invented at first glance. From grape-like quartz to snails that hitch a ride, every story here reveals a different survival trick or ecological surprise. This is quartz, and its rounded clusters are what make it look like a bunch of grapes. The stone formed in West Sulawesi, Indonesia, where tiny silica-rich spheres grew together inside rock cavities. Those spheres are botryoidal growths, meaning a surface built from many small rounded bumps instead of flat crystal faces. Because the stone has no banding, it is not true agate, even though the trade name says agate. That difference matters because the name points to shape, while the mineral itself is macrocrystalline quartz, a crystal built large enough to show its own structure. A jumping spider turns a snail shell into a guarded doorway by hanging a silk curtain across the opening. The spider is Polynice nigriciliatus, a jumping spider that can use an empty shell as a ready-made nest. Instead of building a shelter from scratch, it stays in the shell and spins silk at the entrance, like a soft barrier. That curtain narrows the doorway, helping the spider stay hidden while still reaching out to hunt from cover. The shell gives the spider a hard roof, and the silk adds a flexible front door, showing how small animals can upgrade a borrowed space with one simple decision. Some tiny nereid snails save energy by riding bigger snails upstream instead of crawling the whole way. These snails live in flowing streams, where moving against the current takes constant effort and every step matters. Some smaller nereid snails climb onto a larger Neratina polygera, using its shell as a moving surface. That hitchhiking cuts the work of upstream travel, helping the smaller snails conserve energy as they move toward breeding areas. In a river, even a shell can become a ride, and that decision can help a small animal reach the right stretch of water to reproduce. Eve was a platypus far from home, and that was rare because almost no platypuses were ever shown outside Australia. She lived at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park in California, where keepers had to build a cool, quiet habitat around her nocturnal habits. The surprise was not just the animal itself, but how unusual the exhibition was. In the 21st century, Eve was one of only 2 platypuses displayed outside Australia. That scarcity came from the platypus's needs, since it depends on very specific water, temperature, and feeding conditions that are hard to match elsewhere. So Eve became more than a zoo resident. She was a living test of how carefully a rare species can be housed when a single decision opens a window onto a distant animal. A rare Lebanese wild apple in Europe was tied to one park, so when flames swept through it in 2023, its habitat took a hard hit. The species, Malus trilobata, grows in the eastern Mediterranean, but in Europe it was known from only a small, scattered foothold inside that park. Then the 2023 wildfires burned about 58% of the park, and that meant much of the tree's remaining home was suddenly gone or damaged. For a rare plant with a limited range, losing that much habitat can reduce shelter, seed sources, and the chances of new seedlings taking hold. Its future now depends on how much living woodland remains, how recovery is managed, and whether the surviving trees can keep a foothold in the park's recovery plan. A beaver gets a second river when the Tulalip tribes move it from a conflict site to the Middle Fork Snoqualmie River. In Washington, some beavers build where culverts, roads, or private property make their dams a problem. Instead of removing the animals entirely, the tribes capture and relocate them to a river reach where their building can help. There, beavers can slow water, raise wet ground, and create ponds that support fish, birds, and plants. It is a management choice that lowers conflict while keeping a working animal in the landscape, and the decision leaves a visible trace on the river. More than 100,000 gallons of chlorinated water leaked into Chimacum Creek, and a school fish hatchery program felt it fast. Chimacum Creek is a small stream in Jefferson County that gathers spring water, tributaries, and valley runoff before reaching Port Townsend Bay. Then chlorinated water entered the creek, and a clean, living flow became a stressed stretch of water for young fish and the hatchery work around them. The immediate result was disruption. Water conditions changed, and the hatchery program had to deal with a stream that was no longer behaving normally. In a connected watershed, a spill can move from pipe to creek to estuary in a short time, so monitoring and quick response matter for the whole system. Sam Jaffe's gallery openings included live caterpillars, because his photographs and his display were meant to meet in the same room. Jaffe photographed plants and insects with close attention, so the opening became part exhibition and part habitat, where the food table and the living subjects shared one setting. The unusual ritual made the subject impossible to separate from the event. Viewers were not only seeing pictures of living things, they were encountering living things beside them. That direct encounter changed the mood of the room. because the opening no longer felt like a distant presentation but a close look at the same world his images came from. His openings showed a simple idea: a photograph can point back to a living place, and the smallest detail can change how people read the work, leaving one memorable decision behind. Nature keeps finding unexpected answers in shape, behavior, and survival. If you enjoyed these strange true stories, subscribe and tell us which one surprised you most.